Welcome, everyone, to the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. Joining me as always, my winger, Ricky Squid. Five, boy, oh boy, slipping with the tongue here today, Squid. I got to get it back in practice. It's been a couple of days. Sadly,
Need a coffee.
this is my mumbling and stumbling and bumbling. With golf season ending, that can only mean one thing: hockey is back, so that can't be all bad.
No, I mean it's kind of nice to watch the game again and dissect everything as we always do, and we're all coach general managers or coaches, and everything that happens you got to critique it, and but it's just fun to watch. I love it. I love the talent of the players. Yeah, the game has changed a lot since I played, and I would like to see maybe a little bit more physicality in the game. But hey, these guys are damn good. They're very, very talented, and they're fun to watch.
Well, it goes to show you because some very early surprises on the winning front with Buffalo. I know it's very early, but Buffalo, Detroit, Pittsburgh, all teams that aren't supposed to be winning are. Smiles all around with Leaf Nation with Montreal winless in 4 games. Lots of drama going on for
Yeah.
all throughout the league. Mark Bergeron on the hot seat already after a week. Patrick Wozny is being thrown around as a replacement for him already, and he's talked about moving on to LA to replace Rob Blake. Only in Montreal can all this happen after what, 4 games?
Oh boy. Well, it's funny with Buffalo being undefeated, and you know what? And I said this, I believe, when we talked about it before the season began. I said, don't fall asleep on Buffalo.
You said that.
They got a good young teams. They made a couple of good changes in the offseason. And I hate to say it, but I think they got rid of a few guys that maybe didn't really want to be there. And I think that's changed the atmosphere and the thinking in the dressing room. And they got a good young team. They got some good prospects. They have a few more in Rochester. So I mean, things are only looking up in Buffalo and Detroit. Again, you got Steve Eiserman rebuilding that team. He did it in Tampa. I'm pretty sure he's going to do it in Detroit too.
Well, with all that aside, hopefully it only makes the league better if we can get the bottom teams moving up as they do and as they're starting to show, and just shows you the strength of the National Hockey League, which brings us to the team that we follow. Off to a decent start, but not for lack of maybe some hot goaltenders. They may be undefeated at this point sitting here.
Yeah, they could easily be. I mean, especially the last game against the Rangers.
Boy, oh boy.
Shesterkin stood on his head and played exceptionally well. And in overtime, especially, Matthews came in. He had that great chance, and then he got the rebound, and there was an open net, and he couldn't corral it. And if he could have, there's no question that he would have buried it and ended the game. But even during the game, they had some really good opportunities, and he made some great saves.
Well, a
But
little bit of a, I was going to say a little
your
bit.
goalie's got to be your best penalty killer, and their power play wasn't quite as effective as
No,
it would have. Well, they had chances, but again, if your goaltender's that hot, you're going to stifle their power play.
but you got to like the way they moved the puck around in the power play, though. They were moving it around pretty well, so that's a good sign right there. They're going to start going in. There's no question.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that eventually. I mean, well, it's going to have to, because they're getting really, really good opportunities by not just moving the puck, moving bodies around too. And I think if you go back to last year when their power play failed down the stretch and in the playoffs, they were static. They were standing still, just moving the puck around, and it was easy for Montreal to kill. And the teams that played down the stretch. Now they're moving around, they're moving the puck and changing lanes and everything, getting shots from the point and making those penalty killers come out a little higher, and that opens up those seams. And when you start getting those seam passes from Marner to Matthews, look out. That net's going to fill up in a hurry.
I couldn't agree with you more. And speaking of Marner, along with Tavares, maybe a little bit of a slow start for those guys, though they're not lacking in chances. And I guess as a reminder for them, in case they've forgotten how much money they make, the sharp-minded media of Toronto has been reminding them every day how much they make. It's in the paper every day. So here's a few tips for you media guys. They aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and neither are their pay stubs. So how about finding a different narrative, guys? They're both left shaking their heads. Let's get to the most important thing. They're both left shaking their heads, particularly Saturday night in the last minute there. You could see them just looking up at the sky going, what are you guys doing to us? Like those empty nets, they couldn't bear, even in an empty net, those guys could do normally close eye. But the hockey guys just haven't working with them just yet. But their chances are going to start going in the net. You can't keep two good players like that off the score sheet for too long.
No, no chance. I mean, there's not that many goaltenders that play like that on any given night that these guys aren't going to soon start filling the net. And it's just a matter of time. And you're right. I mean, the media can be pretty brutal in Toronto. We all know that. It was brutal when I played. It's even worse now with all the sports channels and all the outlets that there are today. And yeah, they constantly remind them of how much they're making and everything. But you know what? Relax, guys. Like these guys, like you said, these guys aren't going anywhere, and neither are their pay stubs. They're getting paid that kind of money because they're elite players, and that will show.
And by the way, 31 teams would take either one of them. Any of the four.
Oh,
They can off their hands anytime they want. Okay, and they'll find a spot for them.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm just tired of reading this every day and listening to this. Is like come up with something creative, guys. So speaking of which, let's not we've given them too much credit already. So speaking of which, how about we just touched on it briefly, the return of Austin Matthews. If there's speaking of which, now all the naysayers, if there's any doubt how good this kid is, he sure crushed that idiotic thought with his return. He hadn't played a contact game for real since being dominated from the first shift. Squid, listen, maybe give the listeners an idea how difficult that is to do at that level, having missed that amount of time playing with no contact and stepping in like that.
Oh boy, it is very, very difficult. I didn't miss really long lengths of time or anything, except for actually it was my last year in Buffalo, and I remember I sat for 3 months. Then I went to the American Hockey League to play because Tampa and Ottawa were coming in the next season, and I wanted to continue to play, so I had to play. So I said, listen, send me to Rochester and let me play. And I went down there, and it took me about 8 games to get into it in the American League, coming down from the National Hockey League. So 3 months off, and it was very difficult for me to get it going again in the American League. So I can only imagine how tough it is if you're off that long to get it going in the National League, the best league in the world.
So I mean, again, you can see why Sheldon Keefe was so excited in his interview the other day when he was talking about Matthews coming back, and people were seeing a leaner and fitter and quicker Matthews and snapping that puck around like he was. We got a taste of that. Then if that's what's in store coming forward, people are going to be pretty happy with the results by the end of the year, I would suggest. Anyone else catch your eye?
Yeah. There's a couple of guys. Bunting obviously has stood out for me. I mean, I love the way he goes in the net. He's not afraid to go in there and get his nose dirty and get those greasy goals. And I think he's stood out pretty well. Morgan Riley actually, I think, he's skated very well. He's played good defensively. He had a nice block the other night on the power play or on the penalty kill. And of course, Campbell's played well.
Yep.
I mean, you can't say anything about the way he's played. Those are the guys that have kind of stood out for me. And you know what? Kerfoot actually has played pretty good too. And give Spezza a little bit of credit because he's been skating. Remember we talked about it last year in the playoffs, how good he was skating and how good he looked. Well, he looks the exact same way this year. It looks like he's turned back the clock and he's like 25 years old again.
He hasn't lost a step, it looks like. Well, Michael Bunting reminds me of? It reminds me of Clark MacArthur. Remember him from back in 2008?
Yep.
Police? Played, bounced around to a couple of teams, didn't get a really look, had an arbitration problem, a hearing go his way. The team, Atlanta didn't pick it up. He ended up in Toronto, ended up with 62 points with 21 goals. Bunting, same type of player, works hard, goes to the net, nothing earth-shattering, but it's effective.
Yeah, and you know what? When and a kid like here's a real good opportunity for this young kid, and and he knows he's going to be playing with either Tavares and Nylander, or
That's right.
possibly, and I think eventually maybe with Matthews and
Marner.
Marner. Um, I mean, could you ask for a better opportunity? I mean, when you've kind of struggled a little bit in the National League since you come in. I mean, you've been okay, but nothing incredible. And all of a sudden, you're given this opportunity to play with these elite players. Like, I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that.
Well, I mean, and let's go to the next guy who's in that position right now, very, very early. But the same about Bunting can't be said about Nick Ritchie so far. In fairness, only one game with Matthews, a couple with Marner, but his head looked like it was on a swivel at times the other night with those two moving that puck around like they haven't missed a shift in the last 6 months.
Yeah, he looks a little bit behind, obviously behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, his skating, obviously, we already know that he's not the fastest guy in the world. And we saw that with Joe Thornton last year. He didn't fit in very well with those two guys. I think you're going to see Bunting or somebody else up there before long. And Richie, I think eventually, I think you might see him on the third line, a checking line, where he can add a little bit of offense as well. But his job will be more to stop the other team's top line and play with a little edge. But I don't, again, uh, I mean, he's a good player. I'm not saying he's not, and he certainly belongs in the National Hockey League. But when you're playing with Matthews and Marner, you better have some pretty quick feet, because if you're not getting up on the play, you're going to be left behind two zones by the time they get into the slot. I mean, they're that good and they're that fast.
Well, and again, you're dealing with two elite talents. So, I mean, this isn't really a knock
Mm-hmm.
Rich as much as it is something where he's going to
No,
have to learn
no,
to adjust. Now, the thing about it is,
yeah,
it's almost like Babcock from a few years ago when he went after Matt Martin. He had him brought in to keep the flies off the key players. And that could be the role that Richie goes forward with, because the fact these two are so skilled fast, their feet are always moving. So it's very difficult to keep up with these two, especially if you're the third wheel. Zach Hyman, who had a lot of success with them, just came down to the fact that his speed, he was usually the first on the puck
mm-hmm.
go zone. So he was creating
Yeah,
that disruption in the other team's end first, whereas Richie's foot speed isn't at that level. But his size and
no.
strength are definitely an asset. And once he finds his way, he'll open up ice for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you hope so. I mean,
If he can.
obviously they have him there for a reason, and he's going to have to start, doing those types of things, Mike. Or I mean, he's got to get a little quicker, or he's got to find a way to get in there early and get on the puck and free that puck up for those guys and let them do their thing, and then just go to the net with your stick on the ice, as they always say, and they'll throw one off your stick or your leg or something, and you might get 20. You never know.
Well, if he puts himself in position to get a few lights off rebounds, scrambles, deep looks,
Mm-hmm.
the dirty finishes that win tough games. But whether he can get that confidence to get to that level, that's going to be his challenge, and he's going to have to work on it.
Yep. He's going to have to work at it. There's no question. He's going to have to build some chemistry with those two guys if he's going to stay on that line. And I would say that he's probably going to have to do it pretty quickly, because you don't want to hold those guys back. And having someone on the line that isn't working with them and isn't, they're not on the same page, I guess, or in sync, is not good for those guys. So, if he doesn't find a way to gel with those two guys, then they're going to have to probably try someone else, I would think, because they can't let those guys, suffer because of that for very long.
That's correct. So, one other guy we want to kind of get to is Andre Cachet. He's looked good at times, but he appears to leave the ice in pain an awful lot. I mean, so and maybe just going through a string of bad lucks. I see the scratch in practice yesterday, so he had the day off. Nick Robinson now can't catch a break, fractures leg, out for 10 weeks. Very quickly,
Hmm.
the depth gets challenged the first week. Has to give a guy like Josh Osang a lift, knowing the call is likely to come at some point if this continues.
Well, it's a possibility. Kasha, I mean, here's a guy. I don't know how many shots he's blocked already this year. I mean, it's been quite a
Yeah,
few.
he's a good player.
He's been excellent. He's been excellent on the penalty kill, even 5-on-5. He's getting the job done. He's doing what he's supposed to do, playing on a third line. I believe he's with Kerfoot and
Engvall.
uh,
Engvall.
Engvall, yeah. And they look pretty good. And I mean, he's a good penalty killer. He's blocked a lot of shots. That's probably why every time he goes to the bench, he's wincing because he blocked so many damn shots.
Well, it's not doing Kyle Dubas's heart any good watching that because all these guys dropping and him going out bent over every shift. That's certainly not helping giving him a lot of very sleepless nights, I'm sure. Now, moving to the DB, touched on Morgan Riley, who's been playing very well, and expect him to play well. He does have motivation at the end of this year with a little ticket he's waiting to sign somewhere
Hmm.
out here at some point. Rasmus Sandin, let's touch on him for a moment. He's had his moments, moves his puck the right way, positions himself well in the ozone, I find. But concern is he gets pushed off the puck too easily. He's still young, but he must get strong on his skates or he is going to last. Now you can hide this in the regular season, but in the playoffs you can't.
Yeah. And you know what? I agree with you, Mike, on that. And, not only does he get pushed off the puck a little bit too easy, but there's times where he gets himself kind of out of position as well. And, guys will break wide on him because he's standing up when maybe he should be backing off. But that, again, those are all things a young defenseman in the National Hockey League, they have to learn. And for the most part, most guys don't come into their own until they're 25, 26 years old, and they've already played 4 or 5 years in the league. So, um, we got to give the kid a break and let him, give him a little bit more time. Give him 20 games and see what he's like after 20 games if he continues to get the amount of ice time he's getting, because I think he'll come around and he's going to have to start figuring some things out, and he may have to get a little stronger and start defending a little bit better, but overall in the offensive zone and moving the puck. Boy, I'll tell you, he's done a pretty good job.
Excellent. He definitely has to get stronger. And the other guy in
Yeah.
the spotlight with him, Travis Dermott, hasn't looked bad, but he hasn't stood out. A little bit of the Goldilocks syndrome for him so far. He hopefully with confidence, same as we're talking about Sandin, you gotta let these kids play. The only way they're gonna get better is if they try a few different things. The only way you can try different things is if you're on the ice. So one precedes the other. So you have to have that before you get them to that next level. And that's why defensemen take so long to develop.
Yeah, there's no question. And, we knew going in that these two guys were going to be the 6 and 7 or 5 and 6 guys. And, we talked about it that, if you're not going to play 10, 12 minutes a game, then, you're the length of time it's going to take you to adapt to the National Hockey League is going to take a lot longer. So, keep playing these guys, keep playing them, and they're going to come around. I mean, they're talented. They both skate well. They both move the puck pretty decent. Are they? Yes, they make mistakes. They give up scoring opportunities with those mistakes. But hey, they're young and they're going to learn. They're going to get better. And from those mistakes, they're going to learn. And they're not going to do those things over and over and over again after a certain amount of games.
No, you're right. I mean, that's why I'm on board to let these kids play, let them iron it out, work it out. You need them.
Well, really, when you think about it, Mike, they don't have any other choice. They need to play those guys.
We don't want to go there with that, but that's for Brad. And that brings us to the goaltending with the same way with Mrazek out now. Campbell's got to stay durable. You even have Joseph Woll, who they were looking for him to take his game to the next level. He's hurt. Ian Scott is hurt.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now, Eric Colgreen, who they brought in from the SHL, the beginning of the year on a 2-year contract, he's becoming the number one goalie in the Marlies. You never know. This is where you need that little bit of luck to come along, where somebody has to step up and have his Wally Pip moment, which we keep using it at some point. But Somebody has to step up at some point. Hutchinson's going to fill in for now, but somewhere down the line, one of these guys has to come through for us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, well, first of all, I think Jack Campbell can hold down the number one spot. I mean, he's kept them in every game. He's played extremely well every game that he's played. But back to back, and when you play 3 and 4 and those types of scenarios, you can't play every game. And you know, that's where that backup has to come in and get the job done. And you know, if your backup plays 20 games in the season and wins 4 or 5, well, that's not very good. So, you know, we got to look for that backup to step up and get a few wins whenever he does get in. Because Campbell's going to do his job.
Yep. Well, I agree with you on that one. Squid, lots of drama. The season's a week old. So to help with the slow start, coupled with a few injuries, dare I say some bad luck, some of our guys are, you know, maybe not feeling so good. Maybe the hockey guards aren't looking up. So let's leave them with this thought. So here's the quote of the week. You ready?
I am ready.
Here we go. The biggest trap, the biggest dungeon in life isn't laziness or bad luck. It's comfort.
That's a good one, because as soon as you become comfortable
or complacent, yes,
then well, that leads to complacency, and then you don't play your game. So you got to stay hungry, and you got to every single day you got to want to be better the next day. And if you take that approach, then you're going to have success. If you go the other way and you get complacent, then you're going to be out of the league probably, you know, before you thought you would.
Or there'll be a guest on our show.
So I have to agree 100% with that quote.
Or they'll be joining us on the show here. Now, speaking of joining, now speaking of joining us up, boy, what a segment! Is the listeners to the east of us, a little bit east-north of us, can have a meeting with you this weekend. I understand when you're moving to the great little town of Lindsay for a couple of days. Maybe tell us about that, about hometown hockey.
Yeah, hometown hockey. So I'll be up there in Lindsay, where they will be holding the hometown hockey. I don't know what game's going to be on, and I'll be signing autographs there at the hometown hockey thing that they set up on Saturday and Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. It's been way too long, Mike. It's it's been since March of 2020 since the last time I did anything like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun. And of course, you know, you get up there and you kind of hang out with Ron McLean and them a little bit, and that's always fun as well.
Well, the fans are sure missing it too, so I'm sure there'll be a great turnout. So this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, drop in and say Squid, say hi, give them some questions for the podcast to help us and for our weekly show. Speaking of which, guys, that's it for today. But next week, same place. There you go.
Write them all down. Write all the questions down, Mike, and then I'll bring them all home and I'll send them to you, and then we can do a Q&A.
Go up and give them the questions. Makes our job that much easier. And put Squid in the hot seat. He can answer them all. So again, next week, same time, same place, guys. Don't forget to tune in. Speaking of the podcast, Squid and the Ultimate Leaf Fan podcast this week, featuring ex-Leaf Jack Balaket. Some good stories from Jack playing for the Leafs, and some of the shenanigans went on wearing the blue and white and then playing in Colorado. Drops Friday at 6:00. Hope everyone enjoys the upcoming games this week. A couple Leaf games, hopefully we're going to get through. But until then, we'll talk to you guys all next week.